Welcome to Ronan's Playhouse and Learning. Hello, everybody. I am so happy you're here today. Today, we are going to take a journey through history as we learn all about Columbus Day. All right, let's set sail. Let's start with the basics. What is Columbus Day? Columbus Day is a holiday in the United States that commemorates the voyage of Christopher Columbus, who on October 12, 1492, landed in what the Europeans then called the New World. It's observed on the second Monday in October each year. It became an official federal holiday in 1937 under President Franklin D. Roosevelt. But people had already been marking Columbus's landing long before it became a formal holiday. So when we say Columbus Day, what we mean is a day to remember that journey across the Atlantic and to reflect on what happened afterward. Now, let's talk about Christopher Columbus, who he was, what he wanted to do, and what really happened. Columbus was born in Genoa, Italy, around 1451. He grew up during a time when many Europeans believed that the world was round, not flat. And explorers were trying to find new sea routes to Asia for spices, silk, gold, and other riches. Columbus believed that by sailing west across the Atlantic, he could reach Asia, in particular what people then called the Indies. The 1492 voyage. Columbus asked rulers in Europe for support for his voyage. Eventually, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain agreed to sponsor him. He set out with 3 ships, the Niña, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. After a long Atlantic crossing, in the early morning of October 12, 1492, one of his crew spotted land. They landed on an island in the Bahamas. Some historians call it San Salvador. Columbus thought he had reached Asia. Almanac. Columbus made 3 more voyages across the Atlantic, exploring parts of the Caribbean, Central America, and South America, though he never realized he had discovered a new continent. Legacy and controversy. Columbus is often credited in classical narratives with discovering America. But in truth, many indigenous peoples had already lived in the Americas for thousands of years. His interactions with indigenous people were often violent and exploitative, enslaving, forcing labor, taking land, and introducing diseases that devastated many native populations. Because of that history, many people today re-examine how we remember Columbus, and some places observe Indigenous Peoples Day instead of or alongside Columbus Day. Let's look at how Columbus Day became something people celebrate and how that has evolved over time. The first big celebration of Columbus's arrival happened in 1792, on the 300th anniversary of his landing. In New York, people organized events and ceremonies. Over time, especially among Italian American and Catholic communities, Columbus became a symbol of pride, a way of celebrating their heritage and contributions to American society. Federal holiday and parades. In 1892, for the 400th anniversary, President Benjamin Harrison asked Americans to observe the day with patriotic exercises. In 1937, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed a proclamation officially making Columbus Day a national, federal holiday in the U.S. Over time, many cities held parades with floats, costumes, music, and people waving flags and celebrating Italian-American culture. Here are ways people have celebrated or still celebrate Columbus Day. Parades and festivals. Many cities hold Columbus Day parades, often with marching bands, floats that show ships, banners, dancers, and flags. Ceremonies and public speeches. City officials, historians, or community leaders might give speeches about exploration, heritage, or local history. Cultural celebrations. In communities with many Italian Americans, there might be Italian music, food, pasta, pizza. Here are some interesting fun facts. Columbus thought he had reached Asia. He never realized he'd found a new continent. He took more voyages. Columbus made a total of 4 voyages to the Americas after 1492. Not the first European here. Long before Columbus, Norse explorers, like Leif Erikson, may have landed in parts of North America around 1000 CE. There were many islands Columbus visited, including parts of the Caribbean, Central America, and South America. Some places rename the holiday. In Hawaii, for example, Columbus Day is called Discoverer's Day to honor many explorers, including Pacific navigators. The Columbian Order and Italian-American pride. In the late 1800s, Italian-American groups promoted Columbus as a hero to help reduce discrimination against Italians in the U.S. Here are some interesting myths and things to think about. Columbus proved the Earth was round. Actually, educated people in Columbus's time already knew Earth was round. The debate was more about how far it was to sail west, or what was between Europe and Asia. He discovered America. Many people already lived in the Americas. Columbus's arrival was significant for European expansion, but not the first discovery. Thank you so much for joining me on this voyage through history in today's episode of Ronan's Playhouse. I hope you now understand more about Columbus Day, the voyages, the controversies, the celebrations, and the stories that often go on.
Once in a small town lived a boy named Aram. He was quiet and always sat alone at lunch. One rainy morning, he forgot his lunch and sat under a tree, hungry and cold. A girl named Sarah saw him and walked over with her umbrella. She smiled and offered half of her sandwich, saying, "Friends share, right?" That small act made Aram feel noticed and happy. A week later, Sarah slipped on the stairs, and Aram quickly helped her. From that day, they became best friends, always helping each other. Years later at graduation, Sarah said, "One small act of kindness can change a life." Aram smiled, remembering that rainy day under the tree.